Temp check. What kind of summer are we having this year? A family road trip summer? A beach bum summer? Or a wake me up when the sun sets summer? With Instacart, choose your own adventure and skip the shopping side quests. Where available, you can get ice cream delivered to your hotel, sunscreen to the pool, or cold brew to your bed. Well, door, in as fast as 30 minutes. Wherever you find yourself this summer, you can get the goods. Download Instacart for free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum $10 per order. Excludes restaurants. Additional terms and fees apply.
It's easy to get lost in the latest true crime podcast or your favorite binge-worthy show. But what about your own story? That's the most important story of all, and therapy helps you write it. BetterHelp Therapy is 100% online and designed to be convenient and flexible enough to squeeze in between the next episode on your list. Get started today at betterhelp.com/pause for 10% off your first month.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
Each episode, our special guest or guests will bring with them a movie that traumatized them as a child.
This week, we have 2 very special guests, the Pierce brothers, Brett and Drew. They've worn a lot of hats, from editing and storyboarders to directing and writing. Their latest film, The Bewitching, The Wretched, is coming to VOD on May 1st. Welcome to the show, you guys.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for having us. We're excited to talk Evil Dead 2.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm excited to talk to you about The Wretched.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
very much so.
It's easy for us to blab about that for way too long. So
this is new for us because we've never had 2 people that were related on the show. So, who's older?
I am Brett.
Yeah.
Brett.
He's older, I'm wiser.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, the joke is it's always that, like, I'm the one that's like, hey, man, let's go make this movie. Let's jump off the cliff and be crazy and quit our jobs. And Drew's always kind of like, wait a minute. What's the plan? I'm like, I don't care. We just got to be passionate. So that's like the, yeah.
I mean, that kind of evens out. That's kind of a good team to have, I would think.
Yeah.
Have those both sides.
Yeah, it's a good dynamic, and we only want to murder each other, once every 2 weeks, so it's fine. So
that's brothers do.
So, how did you guys get into horror?
We've just our dad actually worked on the first Evil Dead, so we've been kind of obsessed with horror since we were little kids, just because we watched, segue into our movie choice, but. We've been watching horror movies since we were little kids because Evil Dead they shot portions of it in our basement.
Correction on that is, yeah, they were doing the effects and finishing the movie in our basement when I was like 2 or 3 and Drew was like 1. Yeah.
That's so cool, though.
It was cool, except I snuck down into the basement one time when I was really little and like...
Oh.
Yeah, all the guys were there, like Sam and Bruce and my dad and everybody else. What? Yeah, and they were screening like the kind of sort of ending of the movie with the big meltdown to like see if they were projecting it on the wall. So I sneak down and I look and I just see like the most gruesome, disgusting thing. and they don't know I'm standing right there, and it finishes, and they turn on the lights, and I was like horrified. And I actually didn't really watch horror movies till I was about 14 or 15 because I had this like unrealistic expectation that horror movies were going to like melt my brain, so it was just
for some reason our dressers, our clothes, because we lived in a small house in Detroit, they were all in the basement, and we had the scariest basement of all time. I don't know if they were trying to torture us, but like growing up, we were like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and we'd always have to go into this creepy dank basement full of spider webs and like a furnace that
pipes and
pipes and like exposed brick wall. It was like and like the click-on lights, like the little hanging old.
Oh yeah.
It was so creepy.
And the walls were still like spattered with kind of gore that had just dried over time, so it just looked like Evil Dead down in our basement. So it was So I made Drew go down to I was the big brother. I'd be like, you go down first. So that
yes,
you get got first before I get got. Yeah. So it was funny.
What did your dad do on Evil Dead?
He was the photographic special effects artist for the first one.
Cool.
Like his big claim to fame is, at the ending when there's like that big meltdown with the big finale, like gore effect where like the thing screams, falls over and explodes, and there's stop motion and all this stuff. That was him and Tom Sullivan did that for, I don't know, they spent like a summer in our basement just doing that whole sequence. So
that's amazing.
That's amazing.
It was cool. Everyone thought my mom was crazy for letting all these kids come into her basement and make this like super gory horror movie, but we thought it was cool. So
yeah, it's pretty cool.
I mean, yeah. So it sounds like filmmaking was kind of in your guys' blood. When did you decide to get into filmmaking? Has it been something you've always wanted to do?
A little bit. We went to high school, and at the time they had like a TV class to like, film, football games and all that kind of stuff. And we basically turned it into our film class. We had a group of like 10 friends in the class, and we just shoot shorts nonstop.
Yeah, we shot like terrible horror shorts and like Hong Kong action shorts and like rip-offs of all these terrible movies. But it was like kind of awesome. Like, I mean, I even remember on live TV, for Halloween, we had like Wolfman versus the creature from the Black Lagoon, like wrestling match or something. So,
oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah, it was fun. We had a good time.
Yeah, they let us do these little like TV segments. So we do interviews with like the local student council or something, and then in between shorts would be these like really ragtag, like thrown together like Wolfman, fighting Batman type.
Yeah, or they would give us like free passes to leave school. It was kind of funny. It was like we had like carte blanche, and we'd go like downtown and like take a dummy with us and like film it dropping it off the parking garage, which is super dangerous, and we're like, this is going to be awesome, and it was just, it was like film school, for kids. It was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. It's funny, most of those guys from those class now are very successful, either like writers and filmmakers out here now. So it's pretty funny. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah. I mean, side note, like one of them.
Have those?
Oh, like the videos? Yeah. Yeah. Actually, one buddy, and I can't name him because he won't want anyone to request them. He's been like cataloging all of our terrible shorts and movies from our whole life, and he has them all, and it's kind of sweet. We all
sweet and embarrassing.
Yeah. We're like, these can never get out. Yeah.
But that's so sweet that he still has them. It's just nice to. It's like, look how far you've come, and it's cool to see like as young filmmakers. It's so cool. I know that those things are kind of embarrassing, but still like having that little archive, like mini archive in a way, is so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like having a diary of your life that you don't want people to ever see, but it's funny.
So what is it like working together as a brother duo on films?
It's great because we don't have, I think this is why there's a lot of like just brother and sister teams. There's like no ego as far as like if the best idea always wins, like the cream always comes to the top because, we're not afraid to tell each other we have a stupid idea.
Yeah.
Or that we're an idiot.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a great relationship. We just spend way too much time together and,
To his wife and my girlfriend, we drive them nuts just because we're constantly talking movies or the next idea or something like that. But I mean, it's good because Drew comes from kind of heavy storyboarding background and character design background from animation. Like, he worked on Futurama.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, and like Seth Rogen's The Interview was another movie storyboard, and Happy Time Murders. Yeah. So he was on that end of things, and I actually I started working in reality TV because I was so broke from making our first movie, Deadheads. But I've always been kind of like the guy that writes the first draft of the script, and then Drew and I do heavy rewrites together because basically I think Drew's awesomely a perfectionist, and I'm awesomely like just dive in and let's get a draft to work on. So
yeah, we look like clones, but we're like so different creatively. I feel like the balance. Brett always wants to dive in right away and just write the scene he's excited about, and I'm obsessed like for being like an artist and creative. I'm so left brained. I always want to structure, re-examine, and dissect things.
Yeah, and I get bored hearing about it. I'm like, you're sucking all the fun out of it. Let me just write it real fast. So it's like we can change it later, but he's right in a lot of ways, and it usually it's a good balance. I mean, we end up finding I hope what is a good spot for the both of us.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Your new movie that's coming out, The Wretched. Before we get into it, I have to ask, because it was something that was in the script.
Yeah.
Which one of you is the lemon starburst and which one is the cherry and strawberry?
Oh, man. That's so funny. Well, I like cherry and strawberry, man. I'm never going to take the lemon starburst.
Yeah, I mean, I like all starbursts. I'm not really...
Okay.
You know what's funny about that gag, too, though, is like our dad's always like, I don't get it. And I'm like, Dad, you're old.
Yeah.
Because everybody else gets it. I'm like, it's fine. He's like...
I mean, it's obviously the cherry and the strawberry.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, the worst part is when we show it to, like, teenagers now. They're like, what's Taste the Rainbow?
Yeah.
We're like, it's a slogan.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
We're like, oh, we're old.
Yeah, now the Skittles commercials are all the like weird, like I'm gonna pull this zit off your face. And
Yeah.
eat it.
Yeah.
Have you seen the creepy yogurt boy one where he like giggles and he like dips the Skittle in the yogurt boy and he eats it? Oh, it's like a body horror. It's like a body horror movie, but a Skittles commercial. It's phenomenal.
Wow, that would never have been made 10 years ago, man.
No.
That's so funny.
Can you guys tell our listeners a little bit about The Wretched and what it's all about?
Yeah. The Wretched is a horror film. It's our own little creepy dark fairy tale that we've been anxious to tell for a while. It's essentially about a teenager that moves into his dad's place for the summer in this kind of quaint boating town and becomes convinced that the woman next door is a 1,000-year-old witch that's stealing children.
Hell yeah.
That's the premise. I don't like telling it anymore because then I spoil the things I like about the movie.
There's so much more to it.
Yeah. But that's the shorthand.
It's the elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, how did you come up? Because like the witches in this movie is very feral,
so good,
and mean and gnarly.
Thanks.
How did you guys come up with the design, the backstory? How did you decide to make this the way it was?
I mean, it's a couple inspirations, but we were obsessed with the Roald Dahl book, The Witches.
Okay.
You remember that book?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
And I think in our heads, we were always like, what's the grown-up version of that? What's the, like, more adult version that's, like, a little creepier, a little more body horror? Like, where are, like, the creepy witches? Not that it's, like, this community of witches, but where, we never get, like, witches as creatures. That was sort of jumping off point. We always get witches as ghosts. Like, you find out the woman hung herself in the barn and she was a witch because she, hated her children.
Yeah.
But we were like, what's the witch creature? And that after we kind of had that, we just started looking at a bunch of different mythologies from around the world. And there's so many cool witch mythologies we've never seen on screen. Like they've done a little bit of like the Baba Yaga, if you know the Baba Yaga. But we were looking at, there's a couple. There's Jenny Greenteeth, which is like this really creepy witch.
She
that
lives
like
in bogs and like eats children. She kind of looks similar to our witch, so she was visually kind of the big inspiration. But we really fell onto, there's one called Black Annie or Black Annis from the UK.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that before.
She's like a blue-faced witch with like sharp teeth and lives underneath a tree.
Yeah, and steals children. And then
I found one called
yeah.
Boo Hag, which is it's basically this woman who there's always these like folk tales about this woman that comes to town, marries a man, and then at night her husband sees her leaving like in the middle of the night, but she has no skin on. And he realizes eventually, obviously, she's a witch, and she's hung her skin up in the closet. So he ends up salting the skin, and
oh my god,
she burns alive. And we were just like, what a cool fairy tale!
That's just gnarly,
different take. So we kind of took a lot of those pieces and then some of our own like ideas, and just came up with sort of our own version.
Yeah, we were just obsessed with reading those short stories because we just thought they were so creepy. And I'm like a super big Mike Mignola like Hellboy fan. There's so much cool witch stuff that I've just been reading for years in those that I was like, why aren't we doing more witch stuff? There are plenty of good witch films, but why don't we have a variety? Why don't we have like creature witches and other stuff? So,
right. Well, have you guys read the graphic novel The Witches with a Y?
You want to know something funny? Is I love that writer, Scott Snyder. I've read all of American Vampire. I love it.
Yeah.
I had finished writing The Wretched. We were close to production, and I had been reading about the witches online. I'm like, I don't want to read it because I don't want to be influenced by it.
Oh, okay.
Like, I'm going to read it now because I love that writer. I think he's awesome. But I saw a couple, like, covers and images, and I was kind of like, oh, man, they're kind of, like, skating in the same world as us. So we got to, I'm going to try to, like, not look at it for right now and check it out later. But I'm going to read it now just because I'm super intrigued what I've read about it now.
You definitely should. Like,
absolutely.
Like, The Wretched is different. Like, you have similar themes, but, like, it's very different, but The Witch, I think you would really enjoy it. It's just like, it's a phenomenal graphic novel. And the graphic style is awesome, and Scott Snyder always does amazing projects. But I would recommend, especially now that we're all like stuck inside for the foreseeable future, I would I would give it a read. It's pretty quick. It's only one volume. So
oh, really? That's all I've done so far?
It kind of wraps up. Yeah. In one volume. I'm hoping there might be another one, but for right now it is just one volume. So again, it's like super easy and not a lot of like volumes you have to get to finish it, which is great.
Yeah, I heard they were going to try to make a film out of it, and I was like, I was just excited because it was a witch kind of creature thing.
Yeah.
Maybe if they like our movie enough, they'll.
I was going to say, you guys could direct it. It'd be cool. You guys already have, like, the good, creepy witch aesthetic down, so, like, why not?
That'll be cool.
You have our vote.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
One of the things that I really enjoyed about the possession aspect of it was Abby, and how she starts off as this kind of, like, metal, badass mom, and then as the movie continues, she starts to wear like more flowery and like more traditionally / stereotypically feminine outfits, and she goes from being this like really badass mom to being kind of like a walking, I don't want to say stereotype, but kind of like just embracing femininity in a way that she wouldn't, I don't think.
Yeah.
I thought that was just such an interesting little visual cue.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, we were trying to go for like the model woman. Like, if there was an ancient witch who's been terrorizing families since the beginning of time, what would her sort of portrayal of a woman be? And we're like, it'd be great to like, that's where the idea came to like contrast. We based our mother a little bit off of our actual mother, who was a single mom. And super
honestly, probably why she looks like a rock star is because we always think of our mom as a rock star.
Oh,
yeah, no, she's the best. She worked on the movie. She like literally did all the catering. So,
oh my god, really? Hell yeah,
yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, so our homage to in this movie is making our mom the witch.
Hell yeah!
But and then we just thought like the witch, her portrayal, she probably is in terrorizing children every 20, 30 years, 40 years. So her portrayal would be sort of the old version of like, the model woman from the 60s, 70s, and 80s,
But I think we just like the idea that like a lot of the classic witch themes that you see repeated in like all of the different, mythos and like legends is that like, they're kind of like the Dark Mother. It's like they want children, but they can't have them, or they want to be beautiful, but they can't be beautiful because they're this wretched old hag creature, and stuff. So we wanted to like, if this thing got to play house for a little bit, it kind of lusts after everything it can't have, which is children, being beautiful, being a woman, more so than anything. So that was kind of like, the idea was kind of grab all the classic themes that we all kind of know anyways and try to lump them in so that they're in there visually. So
yeah, and another aspect that I thought was really interesting, and I was kind of curious why you decided to do it this way. It reminds me a little bit of like Disturbia or Fright Night, where you have like the kid that no one believes, that he thinks that his neighbor's like a killer or a monster or whatever the case is. But here we actually get to see inside that house a bit, and it opens up some gnarly body horror as well. And I'm curious, like how you decided to show both sides.
It was actually something we debated early on with like the two families, actually, because you always worry as a filmmaker that the pace of your movie is not too slow but just right, so there's a lot of debate early on about like, should the witch directly be kind of going after the main character earlier on in the movie. But Drew and I were so we love voyeurism in movies, like you said, like Fright Night and, Rear Window and Disturbia and all these movies. Because it helps create paranoia. It helps firmly plant you in a character's shoes. So we really wanted to do that. And to accomplish that, you kind of have to let a mystery unfold that the character can't leave alone and eventually kind of gets involved in. So we intentionally wanted to kind of have this thing where the witch kind of invades next door and screws everything up over there, with our kids slowly kind of being drawn into it and hoping that we didn't mess with the pace of our movie, and that was a little bit of kind of like, we just want to do it and we'll see if it works.
We also love the idea of showing, because like, modern families, everybody's heads are stuck in their iPhones and watching Netflix. Like, you wouldn't necessarily notice if your mother was possessed by a witch, like we're also distracted and in our own lives. And we just thought like it would help the story to sort of see everybody how unaware they are of what's going on. We kind of have like a little, there's a little funny beat in there, even where the dad basically heads off fishing while his wife is, not to spoil, but
possessed by a witch,
preying on the child. We just thought that there's something so ironic and kind of feels true to now.
Yeah. And also, just a side note, the use of baby cam footage was
that's my baby, by the way.
Oh my god.
Was it really?
It felt a little morbid putting him in the line of fire.
I love it. Oh my god.
That's amazing.
That's little Owen Thomas Pierce. He was our star.
Oh.
I think it's the thing that helped justify the movie to my wife, because every time he comes on screen, all the audience gasps, go, "Oh, what a cute little kid."
He was very cute.
He was.
The best part about that, when we had to shoot that bit, is like, it's a baby, and our DP comes up to Drew and he's like, so is the baby gonna like turn his head towards camera and then do this? And Drew just goes like, "It's a baby, man. It's gonna do what it wants to do." so it was pretty funny. You had this whole house that was full of like 30 crew members, and we're all trying to be like dead silent so we don't disturb the kid. It was really funny. So
amazing.
Yeah, it was a fun day.
Who did the special effects? How did you get them? Because there's some really awesome sequences, particularly towards the end, that obviously I don't want to spoil, but there's like some really kind of cool graphic sequences.
Yeah, thanks man. Yeah, we got there's this company called Bitemares.
Good name.
Yeah, and even better name. The guy that runs it is a guy called Eric Porn.
Really?
You say porn?
Yeah.
Porn.
He's our first, he's our free laugh at the beginning of the movie, because the credits play and it says special effects by Eric Porn. And I always hear somebody go,
He's super talented. His claim to fame, I think his main shtick, he's been working on the Teen Wolf series for MTV.
Oh, okay, cool.
For I think he did it for 9 years, but
5 years, I think, man.
Oh, was it 5 years?
Yeah.
But he's been basically making creatures, nonstop forever. It's been sort of his factory, and he's done a ton of other things. He worked on Vice and helped out on the Dick Cheney makeup.
Oh wow!
And he's done Walking Dead stints or Fear of the Walking Dead, but he had a huge monster sort of background, and we basically collaborated with him. I'm I'm a designer, like a character designer and storyboard artist. So like I did a bunch of sketches and concepts, passed them to him. He'd go sculpt. And then it was so collaborative. I basically would draw over the sculpts. He'd send me images of his sculpt, and I'd be like, shave a little bit off here. Let's try and make it a little more feminine. And it was this cool, like, collaborative back and forth.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's the best, and he just kind of like the fun thing about him is he like shows up on set, and it's like he's like probably like 42, 43. But he's like a big kid. He's just like standing around with like he'll have like a bucket of blood and a squirter or be coming over with like a dead deer. And he's just excited to like gore it up, We're like,
yeah, the makeup people are always the special effects makeup people are always the most fun on set.
Yeah. It seems like everybody else is stressing out about like the day and, getting all your shots. And they just show up and they're like, all right, man, let's explode a deer. It sounds good. So it's like,
what's up, guys? You ready to just like pour blood all over everything? Okay, let's go.
I'm a huge fan of slow burn movies, but once in a while I really, really enjoy this kind of like creature feature, balls to the wall, just sort of like fun movie. And that's one thing that like when I was watching this last year at Fantasia Fest and you're watching like 20, 30 films and they all start to like blur together. I was so happy to get to this little creature feature that just was not taking itself completely seriously and just was having a lot of fun with the concept. So I just wanted to thank you for making just a fun movie. We need more of those, especially right now.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that's probably our favorite sort of genre. We're in this environment right now where everything is moving towards the bullet. The headline is elevated horror, which we love elevated horror, but we also love Scream. We love Evil Dead 2. We love a lot of these, playful kind of, fun movies.
We kind of like we talked about even going into it is we kind of missed like a horror movie can have really dark material, which we gradually get darker in our film, but it was like they still can be fun. Like they're fun. They can be like roller coasters, and you can have a good time, and you can laugh, and then you can get disturbed all in the same movie. It's okay. So we were just kind of really anxious to kind of like inject that into a movie again because we don't get those as much as we used to.
Yeah,
no, we don't.
We do not.
It makes you care about the characters more if there's moments of levity. And it makes all the scares work a little bit better. And I think the other thing that's so great about comedy, if you have little bits of it, it can relieve the tension so you can actually ramp it back up.
Yeah.
Which it's kind of a danger. It's hard to keep ramping up if you get a really intense, scary scene. You kind of have to let people kind of relax a little bit to be able to get that tension back up. Otherwise, they're just staying at that level. So that's sort of what we love about it.
Yeah, same. And it's, a lot of people deride like jump scares, but I'm telling you, a good jump scare it does the perfect kind of like reset for building up the tension again.
It sure does.
Well, I think jump scares are only bad when that's all you got going and the rest of the movie is
Yeah.
So everybody points them out then, but like honestly, as long as it's not all jump scares, and if people like your movie, they want a few jump scares. They work. They're very effective and they're fun. So,
yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah.
Critics don't like jump scares, but audiences actually like a couple of jump scares, so long as they're well done.
I appreciate a well executed jump scare. Like they're beautiful.
It's like a well executed joke.
Yeah.
It's gets that kind of adrenaline going, and then I love it. So once this quarantine is over, do you guys know what you guys are going to be tackling next? I remember hearing last year you had mentioned like a werewolf movie. Is that still on the table, or what do you guys have coming up?
We're working on a bunch of different stuff. Some things aren't like our original creations, but the werewolf thing is something we really, really want to do. It was actually something we wanted to do even before The Wretched, but we were also like, well, with our independent movie budget, doing a werewolf might not be the best idea. so we kind of tabled it, but it's something we've been wanting to do for a really long time. And fingers crossed, we really like where things are going with it, that it happens. But you never know until you're like spending somebody else's money and shooting a movie that you're actually getting to make the movie. So
Yeah.
We've been doing. They call it the water bottle tour, but basically going around and meeting with anybody in Hollywood who's ever touched a horror franchise or movie ever, like every production company. So it's we've been sort of pitching and talking about a lot of different types of projects. I feel like every genre, every type of horror movie anyway, we've sort of...
Yeah, I was even pushing. We were pushing our representation. We were like, "What's going on with American Vampire? Let's find it."
Oh my god,
they were making it. It's like, and they were like, "I don't think there's any interest in this." I'm like, "What?"
How?
I don't know. It's amazing. It would be a great TV show or even a series of films, so. But yeah, it's it's just part of the reason we made The Wretched independent is we tried to make it out here with like production companies and studios, and we actually worked with two of them for a couple of years trying to get it going, and they just never were able to. So we just were like, we eventually were like, let's just go find the money and put this together ourselves, just because it's only going to happen if we really push for it. So it's just the way it is. But it was nice because we honestly got to go shoot a movie up in the woods back home in Michigan, and like just drag out a bunch of friends and people we really trusted that were good, filmmakers and creatives, and just kind of make a movie that we wanted to make in the woods. So it was fun.
Same way we did when we were in high school.
Sounds kind of like The Evil Dead, too.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a problem. I always tell people this. I'm like, the problem is with our dad making that movie when we were really little and seeing all those guys in our house. We just kind of like, we grew up thinking like, oh yeah, a movie. You just need to like get your friends and you can make it in your basement, So it's like, but it helps.
So let's talk about what we've been watching whilst practicing our social distancing. Terry, what have you been watching that you want to talk about?
Well, the thing is that I honestly have not watched a whole lot outside of podcast prep, and there's one movie I watched that I didn't really care for, so I don't want to talk about it.
Cool.
But
that's nice of you, man. I think that's the way to go with things. You don't like something.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's bad because somebody worked really hard on that. So.
Right.
Yeah.
But I did stay up way too late last night. Yeah, no, the night before because of the Resident Evil 3 launch.
Hell yes.
Nice.
The Resident Evil 3 remake. And I played that for a couple hours before I just like collapsed and fell asleep. But it's really good. Are you guys gamers at all?
I'm a huge gamer. I play all the time. I'm still like right now though. I'm still like moseying around Red Dead Redemption 2. Like,
oh yeah,
he's fishing every day.
Yeah, I'm just pretending to be a cowboy all the time. But I haven't played the remakes of Resident Evil yet. I played the last Resident Evil all the way through. I think that was 7.
7.
Yeah. Oh, I love 7.
Yeah. Weird side note is that's how we found our sound designer for The Wretched, because I just looked up. I'm like, man, whoever did the sound in this is really creepy. I looked him up online and I Facebooked him. I'm like, hey man, can you work on our movie? And he agreed.
Holy shit!
Oh my god.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Thanks, social media.
we didn't realize at the time. We didn't look up his IMDb credits. We just hit him up, and he was working on I think Hobbs and Shaw, and then Frozen 2. Like he was a legit A-list sound designer.
Aquaman. He'd done Conjuring 2, and he did our movie.
Yeah, so we gave him a Braveheart speech about our passion in making this movie, and somehow got him.
But he was just excited that I was such a fan of his Resident Evil 7 work. He got really excited, and I think that's why he did our movie. So
he's probably like, "Oh, thank you for recognizing my video game work."
Yeah, he killed it though. I mean, it's such a big deal to have a good sound design in a horror movie. It can totally change the way a scene feels. It's nuts.
So how's Resident Evil 3 remake? Is it?
So it's kind of like my least favorite of the series. Up until the 5 and 6 where things got a little ridiculous. It was always been my least favorite because it's so short, and that's getting a lot of critiques now because I think you can beat it in 4 hours.
Yeah.
Because it was short when it came out in '99. I remember being disappointed when that originally came out.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, the production design behind it is fantastic. It's creepy as hell. The Nemesis is still intense as ever. Cool. It's just I know that I'm already probably pretty close to the end after playing it in one session.
I love 1, 2, 3, and 3 I liked. I was kind of like you. It's I enjoyed 3, but it wasn't my favorite. 1, 2, and 4 were awesome. I skipped 5 and 6 just because everybody told me they were bad. and then it jumped back into 7. But
well, and I think that's also part of the problem is that last year you released Resident Evil 2, which is probably probably my favorite of the Resident Evil games, and it's because it's so big. It was so game changing in terms of what they were able to do and the branching storylines and everything. And that remake was just it's perfection. And so you come from that to Resident Evil 3, and it's sort of like how I felt going from Resident Evil 2 to Resident Evil 3 back in the day.
Yeah.
So but it's fun.
I'm usually the bigger gamer out of the two of us, but the first 2 Resident Evils I just watched Brett play.
Oh yeah.
I feel like watching a horror movie.
Yes. I love watching people play horror.
I love it.
It's fun.
Me too. I used to play PT. You guys play PT? You ever play that? The sample?
Oh, yes.
I didn't play
so
it.
sad
I just watched a lot of people play it.
Oh my god, it's the best.
I downloaded the night that they talked about it, and I thought it was still on my PlayStation, and when they took it off, I realized that I had deleted it because PlayStation Space is a premium, and so I don't have it anymore. But yeah, I did love that.
Yeah, I remember I let somebody play it in my place, and I had already played through it and scared the shit out of myself. And like I had all the lights off, and they were playing it, and like to the point where like they spun around and they saw the creepy woman ghost behind them.
Oh yeah.
They just like launched the controller over their head and it hit the window, and it's like oh. I was like, oh, I can't wait for this whole game to come out, and then it never came.
I know.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Stupid Konami.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah, that's pretty much all I've been doing at that, and still making my town in Animal Crossing.
Hell yeah.
Trying to make it as horrible as possible. So much horror stuff in it, but yeah, that's about it. What about you, Mary Beth?
I watched As Above, So Below.
Oh yeah, I saw
and
that.
Holy shit, I am obsessed with it.
Yeah,
I tweeted about it last night, and like it blew up. All I said was, As Above, So Below is really good. Wow. And like 400 people liked it. And I was like, I don't understand what happened. I didn't know there was such like love for this movie, but I hadn't watched it before. I had heard from people it was really good, but like, found footage movies, so it can be kind of hit or miss, but it was like, chef's kiss. Like, it was this fascinating portrayal of hell. And it like there was speaking of really good jump scares, there were a couple really well executed jump scares, and like I don't think it leaned too heavily into being like constantly trying to freak you out with like things in the background, things jumping out at you that happens in a lot of found footage, and it had this claustrophobia to it, like The Descent. It's very similar to that in terms of them like crawling through tunnels and being trapped underground, and so I absolutely loved it. I want more movies about alchemy now because it's about like alchemy and the finding the philosopher's stone, and it was fascinating.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's on Netflix. If you guys, it's like
I'll totally check that out. Yeah,
it's an hour and a half. It's on Netflix. It's a really good watch. My boyfriend and I watched it last night on a whim, and we were really glad we watched it. So that I know it's not new, but like underrated gem. Everybody, please go watch As Above, So Below. It's really, really good.
I agree, and I'm not usually a found footage fan. Like that is not my go-to subgenre. But I enjoyed that one. I completely agree. It's very claustrophobic. It does some really interesting things with like presenting hell, and yeah, I think it's a good movie.
Yeah, and
I do recommend it.
I have a soft spot for found footage horror. I know it's not always great, but I really like. I think it's a really fascinating way of like pushing the boundaries of like camera as apparatus, but that's also like very like academic and bougie. But I really like what the people can do and like experimenting with that kind of genre.
Yeah, we love it too.
Kind of down on it all the time, but I'm like, it's because some people have made some really good ones, and then a lot of people do bad knockoffs, and it's just because there's too many.
Yeah,
it's not because it's like a bad way to make a film. It's just like It's like anything. It's like zombies have been huge the last 10 years. Did we get all good zombie movies? No, we got a lot of bad ones, and we got some really good ones in there. But it's like that doesn't mean all zombie movies are bad. So it's just too many of them. That's all. So it's
another good found footage movie is called The Borderlands.
I don't know that one either.
That one's really fucked up, to put it lightly. The ending is really fucked up. I guess like horror people, like we like that kind of stuff, but
yeah.
It's about a haunted church and trying to figure out what's going on in this haunted church, and it's real weird. It has like one of those movies that has like a ghost show feel, but a little bit less cheesy. And the ending, I think, is worth the payoff. It's just like really weird. So it's another good one.
One of my favorites is Gonjiam, Haunted Asylum.
I haven't watched that yet. I want to watch it this weekend.
I feel like I'm missing a ton of stuff. Maybe
I know. I thought I was all caught up.
Some of these streaming services
everything.
have like the worst like art or poster for them. So sometimes I like skip over them because I'm like, that looks like a terrible poster, which is probably not the best way to like judge stuff, you know?
No, I've done that before. The Borderlands poster is not very good, I will admit. It looks really cheesy, but the movie is not. But the poster, it's like, it's not the best designed thing I've ever seen. And so it was a movie that I actually had passed over before because of the poster. But I saw someone on one of like the horror movie subreddits recommending it. And so I thought, why not? And it was worth it. So, yeah. Brett, what have you been watching? I'll just pick one of you. So.
I've been watching like every documentary that's on YouTube about the making of Halloween.
Oh.
Probably watched like 8 or 10 of them.
Oh my God.
I don't know why. I love that movie and obsess over it. And I just like, I can't get enough of watching like, Jamie Lee Curtis and John Carpenter and Dean Cundy and all these people talk about making Halloween. I don't know why, but it's a weird obsession, but I love it. I don't know. I've been going through those, and then I plowed through the show called Evil that's like on CBS or something.
I saw ads for that. I was actually pretty interested in watching it.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's kind of like a guilty pleasure because I kind of love that the type of horror that it's kind of, mining, and it gives me kind of the X-Files vibe that I've missed for a really long time.
Okay.
Can steer into feeling a little cheesy sometimes, but I've stuck with it, and it's been fun. I don't know if it's like great, but it's definitely something that I'm going to keep watching for a little bit more to see if it kind of just keeps going in a good direction. But
cool.
Been my stuff lately, and then I watched Daniel Isn't Real last night, which was pretty cool.
Oh my God, I love that movie.
Cool flick. So
we talked to Adam about that movie just a couple weeks ago.
Cool. Yeah, cool. We met Adam out at Fright Fest. He's a really nice fella, and I felt bad because we didn't see his movie there because we had another friend whose movie was screening the same time, and he had been, my friend had for months been like, "You got to come to my screening, man. You got to come." And Adam was like, "You got to come to my screening." I'm like, "Man, dude, I promised him I would go. I can't. I have to go. I've been telling him for like 3 months I would go to his movie." So I finally watched it, and it's very good. So.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Drew, what have you been watching?
I have been watching Devs.
Oh my God, Drew.
Oh yeah.
Talk to me about Devs. I'm obsessed with Devs.
Oh, it's amazing.
I'm so into it.
I'm only 4 episodes in. I think there's like 7 or 8, but Ex Machina was one of my favorite movies of the last decade. Yes. I absolutely love that movie, and it's cool to have something that's like the same flavor.
Yes.
It's just the coolest unfolding mystery. I love Nick Offerman as playing a dramatic role.
Right?
We've always been a huge fan of him. For a while, Brett was even with The Wretched. He was like, maybe we can get Nick Offerman to be the dad. What do you think?
Oh my God. That would have been so good.
I just love that show. It's kind of hard to talk about without, I don't even think you want to spoil anything with that show. It's just such a great unfolding mystery.
Yeah.
If you love Ex Machina, if that's your bag, like definitely check it out. It's probably my favorite show. I'm only 4 episodes in, but it's my favorite show I've seen in the last couple of years too.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
The other thing that I've been watching a bit of, and I just love the tone of it, is that that horror show Marianne. Have you guys seen this?
Yes.
Oh yes, it's Marianne.
So like, I'm near the end of it. The story. And sometimes the best horror stories are this. I don't know if it's going to pay off. Yeah, like it doesn't feel like it's going to. But there's something so disturbing about it. And the older woman who's sort of possessed.
She's fantastic.
She's so amazing. Creepy. But yeah, those are my two picks right now.
Cool. Cool. Devs is so good. We're catching up on it tonight. Like my boyfriend and I have a plan to like sit down and catch up on the episodes of Devs because we're so into it, but it's like also pretty dark. So we're like,
that's why I've been waiting weeks trying to get my wife to watch it with me, and I've just given up. So I dove in the last couple days.
I need to give it a shot.
You should. It's really good. It's on Hulu.
Yeah.
It's just like, I think it's really good. It's like very Alex Garland. It's like weird and creepy and just has like an amazing Alex Garland vibe to it. So if you like him, like Drew said, it's worth watching.
I watched only the first episode and I really, really liked it. And I'm having the same hard convince of the girlfriend because she liked it, but it's pretty heavy. So she's like, every time we're like, hey, you want to watch the next Devs? And it's kind of like, yeah, maybe something a little lighter. And I'm like, oh, I want to watch that shit.
No levity.
Yeah.
So now we've talked about what we've been watching recently, but let's talk about the movie that you guys brought with you today. What are we discussing, Brett and Drew?
Evil Dead 2, the scariest movie that was in our VHS collection when we were little kids that we were afraid of for years and years and years. So.
Awesome.
"4 years ago, in this quiet forest, in this cozy cabin, something happened. Something so frightening. Something so deadly. Something so evil. We prayed it would never happen again. Now, from the creator of Evil Dead, comes Evil Dead 2. Dead 2, Dead by Dawn.
So for those of you who have not seen The Evil Dead 2 or it's been a long time, let's just give you a little bit of catch up. Ashley Williams, played by the handsome Bruce Campbell,
so handsome,
travels to a secluded cabin in the woods with his girlfriend Linda, where they find a tape recording of a professor and a book of evil. This unleashes a bunch of evil spirits that constantly terrorize Ash. Meanwhile, a journalist comes to the area to study the Book of Evil. Ash and her end up having to survive this storm of evil until morning comes. So, how old were you guys when you first saw The Evil Dead 2?
I think I was like probably 13 and Drew was probably like 11.
Okay.
Yeah, we had this weird thing where my dad did like, after doing special effects for Evil Dead, he became the guy that like transferred movies to VHS for companies. Like he transferred.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he did the first transfers of the Star Wars movies to VHS. So,
cool!
Yeah. So we were kids, but we had a giant. We were like the poor kids in Detroit, but we had like a giant VHS collection, and Evil Dead 2 was in there. Like I don't know where he got it from. Like it was a taped over recording or something. But like because of our experience of growing up around Evil Dead, we were so terrified to watch it. So we would open the cabinet and be like, should we watch it now? It's like, no, let's watch Return of the Jedi again. We eventually worked ourselves up to watching it, and it just scared the crap out of us. And
yeah, the comedy was definitely lost on us at that age. It was full-on horror at that point. We
were just like, this is terrifying, and we would then we'd get excited, though. We're like, let's invite our friends that probably shouldn't watch this movie, because they're all like 9 to like 13 years old, to watch the movie. So we'd all start watching it at my mom's house and just screwing ourselves up so bad. So it was kind of like the Dare movie for us as kids. Like we dared to watch it all the time. So it was cool.
Do you remember in particular what scenes like terrified you as a kid, or what like stuck with you?
I know, Drew. Do you know which ones bugged you, man?
God, I mean every scene. The one that I think that movie feels more like a nightmare, like a weird fever dream, than any other movie I've ever seen. Like, you feel like you're on drugs when you watch it. And at the time, we had never tried any drugs. So it's like a new experience in so many ways. The thing that it's weird, but there's so many scenes that stick with me. But one of the ones that it was so bonkers was when all the taxidermy and the animals, everything in the room, the lamp, everything starts laughing with him. and you're in this moment where you're just so horrified because he's just, chopped his girlfriend's head off and been wrestling with her, and he's all freaked out. And then all of a sudden the room just starts laughing at him, and you're just, it totally is this moment you just feel so off balance. You're like, this movie can do anything. And there's a quality that we love in movies, is that there's so many movies, and I think we've all watched so many movies at this point, that we like always can kind of see the general direction. Like we know how structure sort of plays out, so you kind of know where a movie's going. Mm-hmm. And Evil Dead 2, I was also so young, I definitely had no idea where any scene or any moment could possibly go at that point. Like, I'm like, the room is laughing? Like, this doesn't feel... Every scene in that movie just feels like a complete left turn to me.
Yeah, I think for me, like, the things that really screwed me up was, like, it's a weird part, too, because it's not a crazy part, but it's after Ash gets, like, thrown through the woods by the demonic spirit, and he crashes into this, like, pool of water, and he looks demonic, and then he kind of recovers and stands up, and the camera just does this 360, where it just looks at the woods and comes back to him, and it's quiet, except for the sound of the woods. And I think because all the manic stuff before that, the silence of it scared the shit out of me, just because I was like, I was so anticipating, like, what's going to happen next. And actually nothing happens right at that point. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you talk about, like, sound design in movies, and the sound design in this is just, it's overwhelming. It's like an oral assault. Yeah. Looney
Sam
Tunes.
Raimi, he's like the master, and I don't know anybody that's ever done it to this extent, is like, he loves to really slow things down and really ramp things up. Yeah. And when he does ramp things up, he goes for like the most absurd sound effects. Like there's like, I think there's a scene where there's like monkey sound effects over like,
when Henrietta's like head goes up.
Yeah.
Like I usually watch things with subtitles just because it's easier for me, and it just said monkey-like screams.
Yes.
And I was like, I mean, all right, that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
I actually made a note of that too, because I had the closed captioning on too, so I could take notes. And when the hand is going possessed, it's like hand is mewling. Is like the little sound descriptor, and I'm like, a mewling hand, the mewling continues. I'm like, that is a perfect way to describe it, but that's hilarious.
That's cool.
But I love the scene where the room just starts laughing, because I wanted to go back to this because it kind of taps into this like almost Lovecraftian feel of like, there is things going on in this world that you have no idea what is real, what is insanity, and it doesn't play by the rules. And so this whole movie doesn't play by any sort of rules. I mean, you have like the beginning of the movie starts off with basically a one-man show, and then they add more people. Whereas like in the first Evil Dead, it's like you have a whole group of people, and then it ends up being one person. So like the structure is all different. The rules are thrown out. Everything in this scene with the bobbing lamp, and he just kind of gives in and starts like doing his little bob up and down with the lamp, cackling maniacally, it's just like, it's perfect.
I think you're hitting on something too, is like sort of, there's not a ton of like character arc in all of the Evil Dead movies, but there is in this. It almost feels like Bruce Campbell is sort of coming to terms with being insane. Right?
Yeah.
And that's sort of like a big turning point, he looks and the room starts laughing, and then he just is like, it's his first step towards embracing how crazy this is, and he starts laughing, and then he does the little dance, the dance off with the lamp.
Yes.
And it feels like, oh, if I embrace this, maybe I'm going to play in this world. You know,
the only way to survive
cool
is to embrace the madness.
It always feels so weird when the others show up, like the redneck and his girlfriend and stuff. Because they show up, and I kind of like, even though I've been through that whole movie with him to that point, you're kind of like, wait, is he crazy? Because they seem pretty with it, and I know I've been watching all this crazy shit happen, but I kind of get where they're coming from, and maybe he's just nuts, you know? It's just, I don't know, it's so cool. There's no movie that like has this tone. Like, nobody else has even gotten close to it. I mean, I hear comparisons sometimes, and you'll see a little bit of something, but it's just like, this is like the best one-night horror movie. I don't know. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, and there's even a scene like kind of tying into Is He Crazy? I love the scene after he's chopped up his girlfriend and he's in the house and he looks in the mirror and he's like, it's fine. We're going to be fine. And his reflection is like,
I don't think so. We just cut up our girlfriend with a chainsaw. Does that sound fine?
We just killed our girlfriend. I don't think any of this is fine. And it's this really hilarious moment. Like, it's kind of creepy. And the way the camera films where it's like he's getting choked and then it pulls back and then he's choking himself. Like, I love that. That was where I was like, oh, this kind of very playful with like, is he going insane or is it real?
Yeah. And it's kind of one of the things I'm so impressed now, I guess more after like making 2 movies, is this movie is so much action, so much effects, so many tricky camera moves, just so much crazy stuff that I'm like, we just went through making our movie. It was so difficult, and we have some special effects, we have some action, we have, location changes. All these things make it hard, and I watch this movie and I go like, how did they do this on a low budget?
Every shot is hard, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, this movie is a hard movie to make. If a studio was saying, hey, here's $20 million, go make it. I'm just floored by it, It's just like, it's something to shoot for anybody, because it's insanely, insanely ambitious, it gets it. I don't know, it's amazing, so.
Yeah, because I rewatched it actually this morning just to have like my memory refreshed, and I was Bruce Campbell deserves so much more attention than he ever got.
Yeah.
Like his performance was amazing. It's like slapstick and rage and insanity, and it's just this amazing, ridiculous. Like he's alone for so much of his film, and he does such an amazing job. And then some of the POV shots, especially when the camera is like chasing Ash through the house.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's so
and
amazing.
It's through all those tight corridors with those pipes. Like, how are they not like killing themselves? Like even the cameraman following along. It's ridiculous.
It's so impressive, and I didn't remember that part. And when I had first seen it, I don't think I was appreciating like the camera work magic that went into that. And I was just like, today I was watching it, and my jaw almost drops. Like, this is absolutely insane, and how hard that must have been, but also how like much it adds to the film that it's like you're in the perspective of the force that is running after him, and it's so cool.
Yeah, I think there's part of us that's so jealous of like, I feel like you have to almost be irresponsible to make a movie like that, because there's so many things. Like us shooting The Wretched, like there's, you're always making little consents as far as like, what can we get away with? Like, we wanted to have like a scene at like a campfire, and we're like, oh, well, we can't afford to have a fire department truck here and all that. Like, I guess we'll just make, a bunch of glowy lights around. Like, I feel like when they were making Evil Dead, they're like, yeah, fuck it. Just run through the house, slam some doors in my face, like
literally punch their doors. It's fine. Like he's like a wrecking ball on that set. Like I was just watching it again, paying attention to the set and being like, I guess they were just like, hey, just like start punching shit. Yeah. And just like throwing things around and snapping them in half. Like nothing was sacred in that movie in terms of like props.
Yeah, and all of Bruce Campbell's like falls in that movie. Like he's constantly falling like 10 feet, and just it looks so dangerous, like he's gonna break an ankle every time. Like he falls down into the basement for that Henrietta bit, and he falls at the end of the movie with the big sort of reveal of him in the future and all these. I'm just like, this does not look safe. There's no pads.
Well, yeah, and like the fall I was thinking about too was when the Linda's head is biting his hand, and he's like, work shed, and he goes to the work shed and like throws himself the wrong direction and then runs to the work shed where he's like flailing around with his head just like attached to his hand. It's just running around like that, and that's why I thought about slapstick, just because it was such an exaggerated way of him moving around and throwing his body. It was so interesting.
Oh, it's the best, yeah.
The craziest thing is like a year and a half ago, probably like 2-3 years ago, I was working on the shoot for like a day, and I talked to this guy, and he was a gaffer or something on Evil Dead 2, and I was so excited. I was like, "Hey man, like, what was it like? Oh man, it's such an amazing movie, blah blah blah." And he just like frowned, and he's like, we all quit after 10 days, and then they had to replace all of us. But,
oh, no.
It's because it was such a hard shoot. And, like, the one thing Drew and I admire so much about Sam Raimi is, I mean, this is not a knock on him, because I envy him for it. He always shoots way longer than planned. Like, it's supposed to, like, if it's supposed to be a 60-day shoot, he shoots for 8 months, you know, kind of type thing. But he shoots and shoots and shoots till he gets what he loves or what he's just feeling for the scene so hard until he feels like he's got it. And I think, like, on Evil Dead 2, I think he just pushed those guys for, like, what he knew he needed. And some of them eventually were like, man, I'm out of here. You know?
Well, speaking of that, like, Henrietta, played by Ted Raimi, and apparently a costume that was so hot that, like, it was... he was overheating, and the costume was filled with liters of sweat. And I guess Gregory Nicotero described pouring the sweat into several Dixie cups so that he could get it out of the costume. And I guess even in the scene where Henrietta spins around over Annie's head, that, like, you can, if you look, you can actually see it dripping out of the costume's ear. Like, the sweat is just...
Stop. Oh, that's repulsive.
Oh, it's disgusting.
You talk about, like, the working conditions. I can't even imagine.
We had a little taste of that with our first movie. The first movie we made was called Deadheads.
Mm-hmm.
It's this, like, road trip zombie comedy. And we had this gag where there'd be, like, 20 people in radiation suits, like, full-on radiation suits, like these big plastic bubbles. And it was 100 degrees out in Michigan when we were shooting. So it was the same exact thing. People would just get, like, a whole glass full of sweat in the base of their foot by the end of the day.
Oh,
and these things just reeked. We'd have to turn them inside out and hose down, like, 20, 30 radiation suits every night. Our mom was, like, scrubbing them with a scrub brush, and then we'd do it again the next day.
What a good mom.
Man, the best part is my dad walked up to me one time, because we always make our dad wear one for background. But he walked up to me, and I just hear, like, this gross little fart noise. And I'm like, Dad, that's disgusting. He's like, well, it smells better than what it smells like in here. I was like, fair enough. It's all right. Oh, man.
Terry, how old were you when you first saw this movie?
You know, here's the thing. I don't remember.
Okay.
I think I saw these movies kind of out of order. I saw the first one when I was a kid, and it traumatized me. But I think I saw Army of Darkness sometime in, like, 8th grade, or maybe I was a freshman in high school. And I was so confused because Evil Dead 1 did not end with Ash with a chainsaw in his hand getting sucked into a portal. And I was like, what is going on here? Then I watched Evil Dead 2 afterwards, and I was like, I hated it. I'm going to be perfectly honest. When I saw it, I hated it.
Oh, interesting.
I wasn't, like, into the comedic aspect of it. I was like, this is just stupid. Because, like, I remember there was a couple movies that were, like, touted as being, like, oh, the most terrifying movies ever. And it was, like, in my school, it was this movie, and it was also that Peter Jackson film, Dead Alive.
Yeah.
Where, like, and I would watch them, and I'm like, this is not scary. This is dumb. And so this used to be my least favorite of any of the Evil Dead movies until this viewing, and I absolutely loved it. I'm a convert. I have come around on this film, unlike some other films we've discussed. I love this film so
oh my gosh,
much.
Yay! Okay, good.
Yeah. What about you, Mary Beth? How old were you?
I was in college, actually. My boyfriend, who I live with now, is really really loves Evil Dead, and I had never seen it, and he said, "Oh, let's watch them." So we watched the first and second one back to back. And I was obsessed.
Yeah.
Like, I watched The Army of Darkness, like, a couple weeks later. But, like, I absolutely fell in love with this movie, and it was, like, one of the first things we watched together as a couple, and it was kind of sweet, you know, watching creepy horror movies together.
I love that.
But I absolutely loved it, because I had seen the cover with, like, the skull with the human eyes.
Yep.
I had seen that. I think my grandpa on my dad's side had a copy of it, the VHS, and I got terrified. Like you guys, I got terrified of it, and I didn't realize it was funny. I thought it was just, like, fucked up because of that, just that skull. And so that hatched an imprint in my head. And so I watched and I watched it. I'm like, oh, that was amazing. And then I saw the cover, and I thought, oh, this is the movie that's been haunting me since my childhood. okay, that like the cover does not translate that very well. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. And like, you know, we rewatched The Evil Dead quite a bit, and we're like a big Evil Dead household. So it's
Nice.
like, it's just, we watched it this morning and I was like, God, this movie is just so fucking good. It's so funny. It's so creepy. And the Henrietta part still freaks me out.
Henrietta.
It's the scariest part to me. Like, I saw this in college, so I wasn't really scared, but the Henrietta part definitely was the grossest and the freakiest to me. That wasn't like kind of funny, just like, and especially when she comes out and you see her whole body, it like kind of reminds me of the dead woman from The Shining when she comes out of the bathtub, but like much worse.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Henrietta's design is quite horrifying.
That's so freaky.
To me. Have you guys seen the new Evil Dead though?
Yeah, I actually just rewatched it like a month ago because I hadn't seen it since it came out in the theater. And when I first saw it, I thought it was okay, and I actually liked it better the second time I watched it. It's one of these movies that like I think grew on me. It's so hard to make a remake, and I feel for anybody that makes one. But it's pretty cool, actually.
Everybody wants you to kind of repeat what was great about the first one, but the only way to really succeed is to do something completely new at the same time.
Yeah. But it's kind of cool. They just like it kind of like paid off on the promise of I think what they wanted for the original Evil Dead is they just wanted to make a really mean horror movie.
Yeah.
So that's what's kind of cool about it is it's its own like it's kind of like if these guys had money back in the day to have a bigger budget and accomplish things a little more the way they wanted, this is probably closer to the movie they would have made, I think.
Yeah.
And Fede Alvarez is super like he's amazing, man.
He's awesome, yeah.
Oh, beautiful. And I was so impressed by it watching it again, where I'm kind of like, man, did I just judge this movie badly because I love the other one so much? And I think I did, because I really kind of came around to it after seeing it this time. So
I feel if there is a criticism of it for me, I love a lot of the sequences. I don't love the characters enough to really care when they get hurt. But somehow I feel for Bruce the entire movie through all the other ones.
I love her though. She's really good. I'm blanking on her name. She's great.
Jane Levy.
Yeah, she's amazing in that movie.
For some reason, I'm not invested in the like drug rehabilitation sort of plot line, and it doesn't feel like that is enough. I don't know. For some reason, I just don't give a shit. Yeah, I like the visuals.
Yeah. But there's some good stuff. I mean, there's a few things that this is Drew and I being picky because Drew and I were always like, someday we're going to grab Evil Dead and remake the shit out of it. And we were never considered, so it's fine. But it's partially just a little bit of jealousy. but we love it, so yeah.
Terry, what did you think of it?
It's my favorite of them.
Wow.
Hell yeah.
I love it more than any of the other ones. And I mean, on the second watch of 2, I might be changing my opinion, but
yeah.
I love it. It came at a time where a lot of horror movies felt really safe, and I just loved how go for broke in the horror aspect of it was, and it was so bloody and so violent, and the unrated cut is even better.
Yes, it's so good.
Oh, I haven't seen the unrated cut.
They released it like on like they had hinted about it, and then they released it on Blu-ray like a couple years ago, and then it finally came to streaming as the director's unrated cut like last year. I think if you order it on iTunes, you get both the director's cut and the original. But it adds like a few extra minutes, but it adds a whole lot more of nastiness that's really good.
Yeah, I just connected these two memories together just now. Like, so I watched The Evil Dead and The Evil Dead 2 with my boyfriend because he wanted to see the new one in theaters. So we watched them. He's like, we have to watch the originals before we go see it in theaters because you haven't seen them. So we watched those, and then pretty soon after we saw the new one, and he was so into the new, like he really liked the new one, and I liked it, even not as like a big Evil Dead fan. I was so into like the gore and the practical effects, and I have revisited it recently, and man, for me, it still holds up.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's definitely one that kind of like got raised up a lot for me just like 2 months ago when I watched it again. I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
I literally was like, why didn't I like this movie as much, you know? And now I'm kind of like, I'm going to keep watching this. And even like the funny thing watching it now is the music, the score is fantastic.
It is.
When we were cutting together The Wretched, I used a lot of that score to temp it when we were doing the edit.
Oh, wow.
Oh, interesting. Oh, cool.
Because I don't know, and you know, I didn't even know that score that well, and I started listening to it on Spotify. I'm like, hey, let's grab this track and edit this scene with it and stuff. So yeah, I just have like a newfound respect for it. I hope they get that second one off the ground they've been talking about for a long time.
Yeah. You know, going back to Evil Dead 2, I love some of the little. There's like a lot of little things that I really dug, like when they dig into the book and they talk about how this guy was prophesized to destroy the evil, and Bruce Campbell or Ash is like, well, he didn't do a very good job, and of course it's him. You know, it's like a joke that he's gonna go back in time, and I just loved it. That was the first time I picked it up. This time was when he's like, didn't do a very good job, or like when he's knocked out and his hand. His mewling hand is like dragging him across the floor to go for the cleaver.
Oh, so good.
Or the fact,
who's laughing now?
Right, who's laughing now? And then he throws the book Farewell to Arms.
Yes. Oh my God, I saw that. I recognized it
the
this time, and I was dying.
There's just so many little things like that, or the eyeball exploding out of Henrietta's mouth and going into I think it was Bobby Joe's mouth.
Bobby Joe, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, that's the other thing that I love about Evil Dead 2 is I guess they were trying to get a better rating, like a rated R rating for Evil Dead 2. So they ended up not being rated anyway, but they basically toned down a lot of the gore by doing like shadow play and like the blood squirting on his face in that moment you're talking about where he crawls across and he chainsaws his arm off. Instead of showing the hand get cut off, which they probably would have done if they would have made it previously. But they just show his face with all the blood just splattering all over. And that's why you get these big, sort of blood bursts like coming out of the walls and stuff. It was all in an attempt to not show actual like body mutilation, but to show the result of it.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it makes it so much scarier.
It does.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's just had such an influence on us our entire lives. And it wasn't necessarily their creative choice. It was more just out of like necessity. Like, how do we, get this rating down?
Well, and the other thing, speaking of rating, that I saw when I was doing some digging is that apparently the reason why there's different colored blood is that they thought that would help with the rating.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's why like some of the blood is green and kind of black and everything is that they thought because it's not going to be red that maybe they'll allow it because it can be called goo or something, right? And of course,
I think that just plays into like the schizophrenic quality of the whole movie.
Yeah.
You're like, what's this about?
Yeah, I just love that it does not play by any rules. It just goes completely for broke. And it just embraces that madness in both filmmaking and the intent of what they're going for.
What's crazy is they wanted to make Evil Dead 3 first. Like, they wanted to make Ash Goes Back in Time. They wanted to, they were calling it Medieval Dead at the time. And, like, the producer was like, that's too expensive. Just make the same movie over again. And I'm so glad he made them do that. I love this movie. So it's so funny.
And we have such a soft spot too because we've known Bruce has been like a family friend of ours, Bruce Campbell, since we were kids. Yeah. So every so many years we go grab like dinner with him or something. But he's the one when we were living back in Michigan making our small little movies out of high school. He was in town because he was living out here at the time, and we grabbed dinner with him, and we were pretty comfortable just like making a movie every summer with our friends, like really low budget. And he encouraged us. He's the one that said you have to move to LA if you want a career in this. Yeah. And then he slammed.
Well, actually, he gave us a copy of his book, If Chins Could Kill.
Yeah,
I have that book signed by him.
It's great. And then he slammed his fist on the table, and he's like. Because we were like, we got this script, but we're kind of waiting out. We might move to LA. And he's like, time waits for no man.
So it was the best Bruce Campbell speech we could have ever gotten. So we totally owe our entire careers to him.
That's amazing. Are you guys still in contact with him?
Yeah, actually, I just emailed him like a couple of weeks ago to send him the movie. But we just had dinner with him like 8 months ago or something. But
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's always fun. Yeah, we made this really terrible horror movie called Dead Undead with like 5 of our buddies that we shot in 3 days around our high school days. And like we wanted a quote for it because we were going to go try and sell it. I came over and watched it in my buddy's little crappy apartment, and it's not a good movie. We made it for $3,000. It's fun. It's cheesy. And he watched it, and like on the way out, our buddy who worked on it with us, he's chasing us like, Bruce, can we get a quote? And he's turned around and goes, okay, you want a quote? Here's a quote. It didn't suck as much as I thought it would. And then he left, and then he actually signed off on that quote. We ended up selling it to like Germany for like $10,000 or something. But on the poster, it said, Bruce Campbell, it didn't suck as much as I thought it would. So,
thanks, Bruce.
God, that's amazing. That's so, Mary Beth, how many groovies out of 5 would you give this movie?
I would give it 5 groovies out of 5.
Oh yeah.
I was in a funk today and I watched it and it just like cheered me up immediately, and I have such fond memories of it. I think it is such a batshit crazy, unique thing, and I think it is just a very important piece of horror cinema, and also just a very fun, entertaining, and creative way to make a horror film. So that is the rating I give it. What about you, Terry? How many groovies out of 5?
So when Terry was young and dumb, he would have probably given this a 2 because he did not understand humor. But watching this week, between Ash is so incredibly sexy in this movie.
Oh my God.
Especially with his tattered shirt. He has a little bit of a hairy chest, some abs, his nice biceps. I was like, I'm really working for this. I love him. I love the inventiveness. I love that the camera work is so stylish, but it actually ties into the narrative because it's not just there to be stylish. It is stylish, but it's there because it's actually a character moving through the sets. I love the kind of gung-ho gonzo filmmaking of just throwing everything in and taking like left turns where you're expecting it to take right. I think this movie is fantastic. I'm really glad that I was able to revisit it and completely change my opinion on it. It's 5 groovies if I can't give it more. I love this movie. What about you, Brett?
It's 5 groovies. I mean, it's been so influential on me in so many different ways, just because of growing up around those guys a little bit, but just loving the movie to death and inspiring me that movies can be kind of gonzo crazy and weird. That like inspires me to try to like push my limits with stuff that we can do, But yeah, I mean, it's had such a huge impact on me. Guess what? It's funny you're talking about Bruce being so sexy and attractive. My mom always talks about like when he first came in. My mom first met him when they were making the first one. She's like, "There's all these nerdy guys making this movie," and then Superman walks in and he's, and he's so attractive and blah blah blah. My mom just gushes about how attractive Bruce was. So it's just funny. But yeah, it's 5 groovies. I don't know if I could love a movie more than I love this movie.
That's fair. What about you, Drew?
It's probably no surprise, but I definitely give it 5 groovies. It's bonkers. This movie is, I think it's one of the most creatively ambitious movies of all time, especially for an independent movie. It's the most reckless, exciting, just fucking, just nuts sort of movies I've ever seen.
So thank you, Brett and Drew, for joining us to talk about Evil Dead 2. Where can the listeners find you, and what do you have coming up you'd like to share?
Thanks, guys. You can find me on Jackstar Grundy on Instagram, which doesn't make any sense to anybody, but it's a reference to a comic book. But The Wretched's coming out May 1st on VOD and like iTunes and Amazon Prime and all the digital platform stuff. So yeah, our big little movie's coming out then. So if you get a chance, check it out.
And I'm at Drew Draw on Instagram.
But we're also the worst social media guys in the world. But if you want to hit us up and say hi or ask a question, we're actually good about responding. We're just bad about posting stuff.
And are you guys on? You guys are on Twitter?
Yeah, we're on Twitter. It's one of those things where I'm like, I tweet every once in a while, but for some reason I'm just like, I don't know, man. I always feel guilty when I go on social media because I'm like, I should really be working on that werewolf script right now. So, but it's just the way it is. So.
Awesome.
So you heard from us, listeners, but now we want to hear from you. What has your experience been with The Evil Dead 2? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com or reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, keep the conversation going by chatting with the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe.
Thank you to Steve Barnold for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Stay well out there and stay creepy.
And until next time.
Won't somebody please think of the children? Won't somebody please think of the children? Somebody please think of the children!
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system. If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served. Hi, I'm Detective Dave. I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood. So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished. From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.